Hi, this is Phoenix, and I've been thinking a lot about the notion of fear and how fear can control our lives in ways that we might not expect or anticipate, and how difficult that is. I've been thinking about fear in the context of limiting our cognition and our mental capacities because it basically hijacks our ability to think more rationally and more clearly on certain situations and about certain things. But I realized that fear can be a very negative thing in the wrong context and definitely limit us. I certainly believe that fear has limited me. There are many examples in my life that I could point to where I could basically say that being fearful in a certain situation did not aid me or did not help me. It's hard because there are probably uses for fear, and it's hard to figure out um, how to handle ourselves if we don't have at least some level of fear. But I've also realized that it can be limiting in some ways, though detaching ourselves and divorcing ourselves from that fear can be very difficult, especially if we don't know what we're doing. I've been thinking about fear in terms of my own life because I know that one of the things that fear has stopped me from doing is expressing myself in a very simple way. Granted, I express myself in my writing, in music, in poetry, and in many different ways in my life. But there are ways in which I still am not as expressive as I desire to be, precisely because I am afraid of many things that many people are afraid of, such as judgment or ostracism or rejection and exclusion. All of these negative things and feelings that are negative outcomes that definitely influence our fear and our feelings of fear. But I realized that for myself, I need to learn how to control this mechanism and this emotion so that way I can express myself more. Granted, there are always contexts for our expressive abilities, but I've realized that if I don't express myself in more context, then I will certainly be limiting myself, and I do believe that that will be damaging. Life is difficult because often we have to come to our own conclusions and operate off those conclusions, but many times we don't get to our own conclusions because we are basically told how to think, what to do by the propaganda of the culture industry, as Marcuse has described it. All of these various ways in which we get manipulated by power structures and hierarchies to think a certain way, and that do indeed place limits on what we can think. I don't want to belabor the point of power structures, but I do think that power structures exist, and I think that they are very problematic. But I think that fear comes from other sources as well, simply with dynamics of many different types that we have with other people. So for instance, we want to impress other people, or we want to look good to other people, or we want to look successful, and all of these things that prevent us from really tapping into our full potential. I really enjoy music, and I have been working really hard at it. But I was at a point where I was afraid to continue to progress in my musical abilities because I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that people wouldn't understand what I was trying to do. I was afraid that my voice would sound bad. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to learn the things that I need to be able to make really cool songs. And I realized that maybe all of that is true, or maybe all of that is not true. I won't know until I do it. To an extent, that's a cliche to say that we don't know until we try, but I think there's enough truth in that because if we don't try, then we will never know. For instance, I have sung in a variety of contexts, and I'm glad that I have. And people can be critical, and they have been critical, but that isn't going to stop me. It's the same with writing. I've been critiqued and criticized and picked apart multiple times about my writing, but here I am, and I'm still writing, and I'm still working on figuring that out. I do think that in order to express ourselves, we have to be able to push past these feelings of fear. We have to be able to understand our own feelings and our own mind and understand where we are coming from. As I said before, this is often hard because we're told what conclusions to operate off of. But often life is very unstable and uncertain, and there are many things that we have to try for ourselves or with as much support as we can get. This is very difficult for me to realize because I do wish that I could hold myself back and not have to be so and not have to express myself so much all the time. But I feel it is something that I need to do and something that I want to do. So, in conclusion, I would say definitely be aware of what you want to express. Definitely be aware of the feelings that you feel and how fear operates in your life. I do think that one of the things that I've had to come to realize is that when I do something, I have to do it for myself, and that itself is also a horrible cliche, but I formulated it in my own terms, which means I can live with the consequences of my actions if I am willing to project it and assert it as I need to. So yeah, this is Phoenix, and I hope that you found this little talk interesting. Yeah, and thank you for your time.